We launched our year-long series of Trusting God Boldly back the first Sunday in January. And we spent January talking about trusting God boldly with our families. We went back all the way to Genesis 2 when God created the family. And then we talked about how that because of the fall, that family was broken. We talked about 3 questions parents need to answer if they're going to repair that brokenness that we find in our families. Then we followed up with 5 principles to help us parent boldly. The second Sunday of January, we talked about the importance of building our family on the rock, going out of Matthew chapter 7 and looking at Jesus saying, if you're going to follow me, you need to do what I ask you to do. And that is especially true in the family. And then last Sunday, of course, we were supposed to launch our navigational plan. And, of course, church got called off. And let me rephrase that. We went online. I apologize. We didn't call it off. We went online. And rightfully so because of the weather. And I recorded a sermon on what it means to honor your parents. And if you've not watched that, I would encourage you to go back. You can go to hendersonville.org or go to our Facebook page and find that service. I talked about the 4 stages of honoring our parents as children, as teenagers, as adults, and then especially as aging parents. Since June and I are moving into the aging parent stage, you know, as I said in the sermon, you know, the sandwich generation, you've got the one in the middle that's taking care of the kids and the parents. Well, June and I are those parents at the top. And so our kids are preparing to take care of us, and we want them to do that well. And so now the question is, how can the church help strengthen the foundation of the family? And so we want to talk about that today. And let me just mention this. When I got into ministry last century, okay, hard to believe that long ago, but my first job was that of a youth minister. And as I got into youth ministry was fairly new. In fact, most churches, if they had youth ministry, it was less than 10 years old. And so I went into youth ministry, and there was no classes in our colleges for it. There were no degrees in youth ministry. And I just kind of had to find my own way. You know, what does youth ministry in a church look like? And Jen and I just kind of were like people out in the dark, blindly trying to figure out what to do. And I served in that role for about 12 years and before moving up into the preaching role. We've come a long way. And churches now are getting serious about helping our families. Our colleges have done the same thing. And we're blessed to have an incredible family ministry team here. I want to invite them to come on up the stage, if they will. I'll get over here on this side. And I want to pass the clicker over to William. And if y'all don't know everyone here, let me just go ahead. Next to me is Hailey. Hailey is our female youth minister. She grew up here, been here a long time, and so became our minister how many years ago? 5 years ago. Has it been that long? It has, okay. Seems longer, right? Yes. From your perspective, perhaps much longer. And so Hailey's doing an incredible job. William has been here 6 years?
5.
5 as well. Okay, y'all came after each other. And William's been here long enough that he's got a son now, Ollie, and is doing great. And then Molly Kate joined us 2 years ago. Got that one right. All right. Molly Kate is our children's minister. And they're here today to talk about the launch of our navigational program. And so I'm just going to begin by asking some questions. Questions will appear on the screen. And I want to begin with you, Hailey. You've been here a long time. You know this church inside and out because of how long you've been here. What is the family discipleship plan, and what does it look like to participate as a family?
Yeah, so...
You might need to turn it on. Sorry. Yeah, I turned it off.
Can you hear me now? Oh,
yes.
Wow. Okay, so almost 2 years ago when Molly came on board, we started our family ministry team here at Hendersonville. It was the 3 of us and John Micah, and we went to a conference, and we listened to different presentations that were happening, and one of them was talking about family ministry within their church and the resources that they provide, their families and their kids and their students, and all of us went to the same class, and we all looked at each other at the same time, and we said, Hendersonville needs this. We need to do this for our families and our students and kids. And so this is just a resource for you guys that are beginning families, whether you are in if it's adoption or foster care or anything of the like. It is just a way for us to partner with you guys in the faith formation of families, because we think that is really important, that it starts within your household. The church is great, and our job is to partner with you guys in that, but it starts in your house as well. So that is what that is. So as we were talking about this, we got back, we started brainstorming. There's been a lot of things that were thrown around, a lot of talk, a lot of conversation, and we were like, what does it look like for a family as they go through life? And we said, it's kind of like hiking. I'm not a big hiker, but it might be a surprise. But I don't do a ton of hiking. But I said, what are three things that you need when you go hiking? And we were like, shelter, essentials, food, water. And so we developed this plan to start in that. And so I meant to say this at the beginning, if you would like to follow along too, as far as see what this looks like, there is a QR code up here that you're able to scan, and it will show you all the resources that we have. And so beginning out, you have your essentials. You're gathering all the things that you need to, as your family is beginning, to, start out. And so we have said that this is for all the first few years of your new family, and it's establishing the family practices, adjusting to a new and growing family, and finding community that encourages you. And so all of these things will have 3 checkpoints that are in there, and it's fostering relationships within the family, fostering relationships within the community, and how do you also do that within your church? And then once you have all your essentials list, you actually embark on the journey, right? Like you actually start hiking, and that can be a little worrisome. And so with kids 2-year-olds to kindergarten, this is about creating a space for your family to host meaningful conversations. Your life pace is going to start increasing. Your kids are going to start sports. They're going to start finding things that they love. They're going to start school. Everything kind of starts to pick up a little bit. And sometimes it can be so easy to let other things fall down, and you're trying to balance all of these things. You have different plates on different things. And so this is what that is about, is trying to create a pace for your family and rhythms within your household that is about faith formation. And then you have the ascension. You start to kind of go up the mountain a little bit, and you're like, okay, it's even more increasing, like that pace of life is even more, you're starting to get a little tired, you get a little winded, things are kind of getting a little bit more hectic. And this is for your grades 1st through 4th grade. And this is about nurturing the curiosity of faith in your family and in your child's desire to trust in the character of who God is. It's about how do you prompt conversations with your child to get to know who God is and who He is and His character. And then there's our 5th through 8th graders, our junior high students. We were trying to think about how this was, what stage this was going to be in the hiking, and we were like, you start middle school, 5th and 6th grade, you kind of are like wondering what's happening. That is middle school. If you don't remember, middle school is a hard time. And it's about wondering what's happening in your life, you're wondering, where is God? What is he doing? Why do I feel? What are these feelings? This anxiety, this, self-image, this self-esteem that is going on in your middle school student's life, it's happening. And so this is about engaging your child's interest in affirming their personal journey. Because not only are they wondering, but they're kind of wandering around. They're like, I don't really know where I fit in right now. I don't know where to go. I don't know what's happening. And so how do you engage those conversations with your middle school student about who they are, who God says that they are, and who you also are affirming what you believe about your child too. And then you get into grades 9th through 11th. This is about fueling the passion for your child to keep pursuing their own authentic faith. Your student's about to graduate college or graduate high school and go to college. And if they have only taken on your faith in your home and they have not taken on their own responsibility in their faith, once they leave this building, it can be hard. It's a struggle. There are so many things, there's so many voices going around outside that are competing with just their own knowledge of who God is. And so how are we really teaching them to believe in what they've been taught and their own faith? And so that's the switchbacks. It's a constant. If you've been hiking and you've been on a switchback, you're just like, oh, I'm going up. And then you think you're like, oh, I'm good, I'm cruising. And then you're like, oh, nope, I'm not good. And that's high school. And then we kind of have one more launch point, and it's just our summit. This is for our seniors who are graduating. And this is a time for you to really mobilize your kids' potential by listening and guiding them and encouraging them as they launch out into adulthood. And so this is the navigation plan. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from all of us that has really encouraged us as we've kind of sat and talked with different members of our church about what they needed when they were in these stages of life. We've talked to so many different families that were just, hey, what did you need during this time when you were here? Or what do you hope that the church does? And how can we partner with you as you are entering into this next phase of life? So, yeah, that's what it is.
Wow, real fast.
Very short synopsis.
Very short summary of all of it. William, to you. So why are we introducing this plan, and what do we hope it builds in our kids and our families?
Wow. That's a good question. Like Hailey said a little bit ago, we began having this conversation quite a long time ago. And through that, with conversations with Megan before Molly got here, and with John Micah, and then when Molly got on staff as well, we actually started practicing this 2 years ago, and we just didn't say anything about it. And so we started implementing some of the things that we were already doing, and now we just want to give a little bit of language of why we do what we're doing. And so we began, like Hailey said a little bit ago, talking to families here in Hendersonville about how can we best help equip your family to pass faith down from generation to generation to generation. So we talked to Allie Bald, and we talked to Ellen Bailey and Emily Castle and Heather Adkins and Jeff Wire and Jeff Castle and Jim Reese and Leanne Hayes and Matthew Conwell and Michael Payne. And just we sat down for hours in our student center at John Micah's house, just having conversations about how can we equip our families and create a practical and sustainable resource for faith formation within our families. And so a common narrative you might hear about our teenagers who follow Jesus is that a number of those who are interested in following Jesus is declining as they get older. And while there are statistics to say that there are teenagers that take a detour when they leave high school, that's not actually what current studies are showing. The Barna Group did a study in 2021 that said throughout the rest of your life, they asked 25,000 teenagers in the U.S., are you interested and motivated to continue learning about Jesus Christ? And 77% said that they are either somewhat motivated or really motivated to continue following Jesus in the rest of their life. That's a big number. 77% of 25,000 teenagers that come from all different sorts of backgrounds, whether they believe in Jesus or whether they don't. 52% are very motivated, 25% are somewhat motivated, and about 16% of them are unmotivated or unsure about exploring Jesus. And so we know that there are a strong majority of teens and children who want to keep exploring Jesus, and that is a window for faith conversations to happen. And so in that same survey, they found about 85% of parents of children under 13 believe that they have the primary responsibility for teaching their child about spiritual teachings and things about Jesus, and yet most parents regularly do not have these conversations within their household on a weekly basis. And so we began asking our questions, okay, how do we help that? How do we help give conversations to our parents? And then they say 73% of parents are concerned about their child's spiritual development. And out of that 73, 84% of practicing Christian parents, or parents who go to church on a weekly basis, say that they are concerned about things. And then 80% of that group who only go to church about once every 3 to 6 months are also concerned about faith being passed down to their kids, and their kids continue to live out their faith. And in 2019, they did a study asking young adults they did a study asking about young adults about them following Jesus and who played a huge part in that and where did they get their faith from. And they said that 59% said someone passed their faith down to me. And then the 23% said, I'm a Christian despite the sort of Christianity I saw in my household growing up. But almost 60% said, hey, faith was passed down from me from someone who poured into me, someone who spent time investing in my life. And so I wondered, well, who are those people that are investing in your life? Well, good thing. They asked that question in the next part, and they said, take a look at the top 3. These are the people who play a huge role in passing down faith into our kids. Mothers, fathers, grandparents, right? Faith formation resides in the family, and the church is just a partner to that. And we want to provide resources and walk alongside you as you build faith at home, because faith that only lives in a church building is rarely survives when you get into the wilderness parts of life. The goal isn't about more programs or more church events. It's about more Jesus conversations in your everyday life. More Jesus conversations in your home. And that's why, I believe that Paul had a conversation in Colossians chapter 3 where he encourages the people of Colossians to say, hey, everything that you do, everything that you say is done with Jesus in mind. And that's, of course, me summarizing that passage in Colossians 3, 16, 17. But he says, everything that we do it in the name of Jesus. And we as a church and as a ministry staff and as a group of families who came together, we just want to help provide you with the resources to help Jesus be part of your everyday life so that when your kid gets older, they know, one, who has their back, and they also know who to turn to when times get tough.
Fantastic. Awesome. Molly Kate.
Yes.
So how can the church help support and partner together to help families thrive? What do we do?
So this is, honestly, here's a secret. This is the part that I'm the most excited about with this navigation plan, because it's not just about the families with kids birth through 12th grade. This is for every single person that's in this room and online and that comes into these doors, because a huge part of being a church is walking alongside our families. When I grew up, one year our youth minister asked our church to adopt a kid or to take a kid and say, hey, I'm going to pray for you for an entire year. And the woman who prayed for me, her name is Phyllis. And Phyllis would stop me every Sunday and say, hey, how are you? How are things? What's going on in your life? What can I be praying about for you? I am 31 years old. I can't believe I just admitted that on stage, but here we are. And I just went on a trip with my mom that she was also on. And one of the first things she said to me was, hey, how's your life? What's going on? How's your job? How's your ministry? How are things? And I tell this story not because she is great, but not because she's an anomaly. But I bet all of you have a story of someone in the church or someone that you came in contact with that cared about you. And we as a church have the opportunity to be that for these kids that I'm looking out and seeing. That these kids that Dean Payne, I'm sorry, I just made eye contact with you and you're going to be really upset that I called you out. But like, you have the opportunity to go up to that kid and find out how he's growing and what Jesus is doing in his life as he grows. And we have the opportunity to help our families. So part of the thing that we're doing is as we go through each checkpoint, we have different celebrations is what we call them. Ways that our church can celebrate families as they go through different stages to support families. I'm going to talk about the Payne family again. Michael Payne, when we met with him, I don't know where he is, but he said something about when kids wonder, we want them to have an anchor point. That they can go out, that they can learn, that they can go and figure out who they are and who God is and what the world is like, but they have an anchor point to come back to. And I have thought about that every single time we've talked about this navigation plan, because I want this church to be their anchor point. I want their family to be an anchor point, but I want this church to be an anchor point that when they know that they can come back to this when they're in trouble, when they don't know what to do, they know that this church is a safe spot, that it's a safe space for them to come back, to feel loved, to feel safe, and to feel the presence of the Lord in this area. So our different checkpoints have different celebrations. So the essentials, the first one is our child dedication, which we got to do this year, and I was so excited to get to celebrate a new and growing family. This is an exciting time for all families, whether it's the first baby or the fifth baby. It's always new. It's always exciting. And so that's our celebration for that. Our embark is our kindergarten blessing that we'll do on Promotion Sunday. We're actually going to ask our seniors, our graduating senior students, to take on and partner a kindergarten student and pray for them. Because we want intergenerational relationships as much as possible, not just with our adults and kids, but within our students as well. Our next one, Ascend. Also, Ascend, 1st through 4th grade, they're upstairs for class. I just need to point out how clever that is, that Ascend and upstairs. Anyways, that's just for me. That celebration, I am so excited about. We have class champions. What I'm going to ask, and if you're interested, this is my plug for this, for adults to take a age group and say, this is my age group. I'm going to take 1st grade, and I will give you a roster of all of our 1st grade kids, and I'm asking you to pray for them, to get to know them and their families, to show up to games, to show up to recitals, to just hang out and get to know these families and be their champions, to establish those relationships. Wonder is, like we said, our 5th through 8th grade. This looks like a family retreat that we're working on, that we're trying to figure out how this works, what it looks like for parents and kids to go and retreat together and set new goals, figure out what the next few years of life are going to look like. Our Switchbacks, our high school, is a leadership retreat. What does it look like to be a leader not only in your family, but here in this church? What does it look like for teens to participate in our worship? I'm so sorry, Brenna, but for our Brennas who are singing on the praise team, what does it look like for our kids to participate in worship? And so we're really excited about that. And then our summit is, of course, our senior Sunday that we've been doing for a while. But what does it look like to send kids off well, and to show them that we love them and that we support them and that we're cheering them on past this time? Like, as our anchor point, we're saying, hey, you go on, you do great things, but we're here and we support you, and we love you, and we wish you well. So that's our celebrations. Really excited for not just our families to get involved, but for us as a church family to be involved in the lives of our kids.
Thank you, Malachite. Appreciate that. That's awesome. So, Hailey, where are we going from here? So, what's coming up next, and what should we expect in the future?
Yeah, so we have a lot of our celebrations that are still going to be coming up this spring, like our Senior Sunday. We ask that, you participate and celebrate with us as these kids are moving on to college. But not only that, we're going to be doing, as Molly mentioned, class champions, people that are, praying for our students and our kids. That's our biggest ask right now for everyone that is in here, is that as we're launching this and as we are moving into this new season of our navigation plan and rolling it out with you guys, that you just be in prayer over it, be in prayer over our families that are here, for the new babies, the students who are graduating, our middle school students, whoever it may be, to just pray over them, and so that they know that their church, stands behind them. And then, so we have resources that will be coming. It'll be ever-changing on our website of just, it can't be something that we just launch and it stays the same, because culture shifts, your family shifts, we shift. And there's always new studies and resources and books and things that we're constantly reading and hearing about, that we're going to be keeping up with on our website, to just make sure that y'all are also aware of everything that we've been talking about and learning about. So that's our navigation plan.
Fantastic. All right, would y'all join me in thanking them for all the work they've done?
All right. I know we're running short on time, but I want to just be brief and give a little bit of some scripture references to why we believe this is important. We don't believe that this is just simply a ministry announcement. This is a moment of honesty. It's a confession that faith doesn't just happen automatically, a confession that parenting is hard, and a confession that we can't do this alone. In January, the three of us, we traveled to Tucson, Arizona just a month ago for a conference that focused on children and youth ministry and learning how we can better equip and walk alongside families here at Hendersonville in this journey of faith formation. And as I was sitting in a class in this desert resort, and outside, like you would think it would be hot because we're in the desert, but no, it's pouring down rain. Which is a spiritual analogy I wish I could spend some more time on, because, how true is it that even in the moments of desert, God provides, and the moments of wilderness, God always provides nutrients for his people. But we were studying about the story of David in this particular class, and something came to light that I had never really paid attention to before. And so if you have your Bible this morning, I want to briefly look at 1 Samuel verses 19. We're only going to look at one verse. So you could turn to 1 Samuel 19, but let me give you a little context, because context brings clarity. David here is a teenage boy. He's about 15, 16 years old, not really old enough to drive, not old enough to have much status in the world, and he's living in a nation that is in a political and moral and spiritual freefall. Everything's falling apart, and David is minding his own business out in the fields, tending to the sheep, and the eyes of God falls upon him. God looks at this young man and says, I see something in him. I see that he has a heart after me, and I have a heart for him, so I'm going to use him. And so God raises up a prophet, Samuel, who shows up and disrupts David's life in an incredible moment where David is anointed as a teenager from an unbelievable task to be king of Israel. And here's what so often that I forget about. David is anointed, but he's not going to be appointed for another 14 or 15 or 16 years. A long time passes between the anointing and the appointing.
And so after this amazing moment, David goes right back into shepherding the fields and back to daily faithfulness. And a year later, David's father sends him to deliver food for his brothers on the front lines of the valley of Elah during a decades-long war with the Philistines. And suddenly, David is thrust into the spotlight. He walks down into the valley and he faces the giant Goliath, and we all know how that story ends. Everything starts to move upward in his life, but Saul, the current king, he becomes jealous, and he brings David close, trying to keep an eye on him, and eventually he turns against him. And by the time we reach 1 Samuel chapter 19, David is so afraid that he runs. And do you know where he runs? David rose and he fled that day from Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. David is so afraid that he runs to Gath. Does anybody know who lived in Gath? Goliath. David is so afraid of his life and of his anointing that he runs to the city of his enemies. He runs to Gath, where Goliath is, and David literally hides in his hometown because he felt safer in enemy territory than he did among the people of God. In church, as we think about trusting God boldly with our family, isn't that the temptation? To feel safer in enemy territory than to be safe amongst the people of God. And I wish we had weeks to unpack this season of David's life, because it's one of the most overlooked parts of his life, and it's also the most transformational moments. It's the moments where David starts to have his heart shaped to be the man after God's own heart. And I don't know about you, but as I navigate this life and I gather what I need to embark on this journey, sometimes I look around and everything seems unfamiliar, like when David was in the city of Gath. And it's that feeling that Katie and I have when we're cleared to leave the hospital and we're holding our son for the first time and we're thinking, what do we do now? How do we keep him alive? It's that moment when we start a new job and we don't know the cultures around us, and it's so easy to just plug ourselves into the culture of that employmentship. It's the moment when we start a new school or we are looking to make friends at school, and it's so easy just to slip into the current circumstances of how people are treating each other rather than treating people with kindness and integrity. It's the moment when peer pressure happens, activities and sports and expectations surround you, where it's so easy to give your life to those things. It's easier to live into enemy territory rather than to live into the anointing and the calling of who God made you to be. And as a follower of Jesus, I get that temptation. It's easy to let the enemy narrate your life. It's easy to let the enemy dictate how your life is going to go. And as a parent, I get that too. Sometimes it's easier to allow the TV shows or the sports, the activities to dictate how my child grows up and learns things morally and respectively and spiritually, rather than for me to have that conversation myself. And for David, it's easier to hide in Goliath's city rather than to trust God among God's people. But eventually, David learned something that's crucial. And we're fast-forwarding 11 chapters. There's so much that happens in the next 11 chapters. And David, he learned something crucial. After trying to do it all himself, after trying to control his own destiny, and watching it all crash and burn, David comes to this turning point in 1 Samuel 31. David has to strengthen himself in the Lord his God. He has to admit that God knows best, that God provides, that God is trustworthy. And church, today, that is today's invitations. Parents, you don't have to have all the answers on this journey. Church family, we don't have to have all the answers either. But as we journey through life, we remind ourselves that God is a God that we can trust. He's a God that is good. He is a God that provides. And He's a God that meets us in the wilderness seasons of life. And that is exactly why today matters. Because today we are launching the Family Discipleship Navigation Plan. And it's simply us saying that we want to stop pretending that faith formation just happens by accident. We want to stop outsourcing the most important spiritual conversation in our homes. We want to stop believing that the lie that families have to navigate this wilderness season and the moments of life alone. This plan, it's not a program. It's not just another church initiative. It's a commitment from all of us to walk together. It's a roadmap to help parents know that you are not alone and that we as a church are walking alongside you and that we want to partner with you. It's a way for our next generation to grow up surrounded not just by church activities and good church programming, but intentional discipleship. Because the goal is not simply that our kids grow up just to attend church. The goal is that our kids grow up knowing Jesus in each and every moment of their life. That the wilderness season, and when the moments come when the wilderness seasons of life happen, they know who to turn to. That they would learn, like David did, to strengthen themselves in the Lord rather than try to control their own destiny. The navigation plan is simply our way of saying that we will not run into enemy territory and live there, but we will strengthen ourselves in the Lord in the moments of life. And so, church, today, that is the invitation. It's the invitation to take the next step. It's the invitation for parents and grandparents and mentors and the whole church family to lean in and to say, our next generation needs Jesus just as much as we do. And so, today, I don't know what your need might be. Whether you are in any sort of part on this journey, maybe you're just in need of some essentials, maybe you are facing your own switchbacks in life. If there's anything that we as a church family can do for you, would you come while Blake leads us in worship?
Let's stand.